Don't trust anyone. Figures lie waking in the shadows, only to use, lie, scheme, and make gacha game videos.
Saying that, oh, you know what, Genshin, maybe it needs to be better.
Penacony is finally here, and woo boy, there's a lot going on. Penacony's story has started, and we need to analyze it, from the plot, to the characters, to the themes, and even the mysteries themselves. Like what's going on? Seriously, what's happening? But most importantly, we need to answer the question, is it a train wreck? Every story needs a beginning, and a good beginning starts something powerful. It starts with a bang. Stories are like solar systems, where each part of them plays in tandem with others, where some aspects hold things together, while others revolve around others, and some take the spotlight. The goal of the entire plot is the sun. But what else makes up this solar system? Like, what is that? Wait, that's a black hole! Spoiler alert, all we have here is the beginning of this story. Also, legit spoiler alert, because I'm going to talk about everything. But this planet's story isn't over, and as such, the entire quality of this arc itself can't be analyzed just yet. I mean, I'd go as far as to say that we maybe have 30% of the complete Penacony story. So if a great beginning is important for a story, and all we have here is the beginning of the plot, how do we then analyze what makes a good beginning without the retrospect given by having the end? Well, to me, a great beginning to a plot consists of setting the scene. And that means doing three things well: establishing a goal, introducing the cast that will be important, and interweaving the two. Also, we need to analyze this boy right here. Wait until you hear what I have to say about him. As we'll learn, this is a mystery story at its core, and while that genre has its own qualities that need to be put into the mix, what I'm referring to here with these qualities specifically applies to all stories. Even slice of life stuff. Chill stories need to establish a goal, cast, and have both connect. The goal could be as superficial as a will they won't they story, or as grand as a save the world plot. So let's talk about what this plot even is. Like with every other departure, the Trailblazer prepares to journey to Penacony by taking their seat. Something we've now experienced twice. But instead of ending up at Penacony, our character gets thrust into a dream, met by a woman named Acheron, who elicits a sense of deja vu. While journeying to an exit, the dreamscape is made manifest through walking on walls and seeing memories of myriad characters. Some we know, like Dr. Ratio and Silverwolf, while others we've yet to see. At the exit, Acheron asks a series of ominous questions about loss and journey. The answers don't seem to matter though, as she claims she hears all of them at once. The Trailblazer is pushed out of the dream by her in an explosion of dream mush, all while Acheron sheds a tear. When the Trailblazer awakens, they share that sadness for an unknown reason. What a start, am I right? Aside from the beginning of the game itself, all other arcs have started fairly smoothly, introducing ideas slowly and establishing an easy-to-understand scenario. Eurilo 6 has a Stellaron, go deal with it. Kafka says the Luofu has a Stellaron, go deal with it. Obviously, these arcs build upon themselves, but the initial thrust is a slow revving of the engines, whereas this arc begins with a turbo boost into insanity. But what does this beginning tell us about this arc? Well, it tells us to not trust what we see, that dreams manipulate not only space itself, but also perhaps time and memories, that all of these characters will likely play a role, and that something sad is gonna happen. This one scene establishes so much to come, and establishes all of the feelings that we'll likely experience in this arc, that I believe it to be the best starting scene to any Hoyoverse story. Haven't played Honkai Impact the Third, don't crucify me. It's the first time we've had an opening like this, and this arc appears better for it. But like I mentioned at the start, what's the goal here? Well, the party is invited to the world of Penacony, a party planet that's about to have a festival known as the Charmony Festival. Our party wasn't the only one that was sent an invite, as many other factions were sent them as well. The planet was a prison planet run by the IPC that now is run by a group called The Family. There's technology on the planet that allows residents to enter into a shared dream world in a lavish hotel. Those running the hotel worship the goddess of harmony. Because of the invite, the party treats this trip to Penacony as a sort of vacation after what they've been through. But Pom Pom also implores the group to seek out a few past nameless, who now call Penacony their home. He wants to see how they've been doing since leaving the Express. We're then thrust into actual Penacony, a world ruled by the rules of harmony, where anyone can enjoy the world of sweet dreams. if you have the money. An IPC rep named Aventurine helps us out to check in after a miscommunication, and two of the members of the family, the group who runs Penacony, Sunday, and Robin, help as well. Robin is a famous singer who's meant to perform at the Charmony Festival, yet her voice is off for some reason. Before entering the dream world, Himeko informs the group that the invites that they were sent actually contained a secret message inside, one that mentions finding the legacy of the Watchmaker, and also learning the answer to the question, why does life slumber? The Watchmaker is seemingly a myth, someone that created the dream world but nobody knows, a legend of a person, or an idea used to entice people to the planet of dreams. Regardless, the group is curious about the message and feel like the family might be hiding something. So there are our goals. Right before we enter the dream, we already know what this arc needs to cover. The nameless who Pom Pom wants us to see, the meaning of the dream world of Penacony, including the identity of the Watchmaker, and whatever mystery this world and the family are hiding. Also, that weird scene with Acheron. So this world establishes itself out of the gate as a mystery, meaning to guide us along a path of mystery box reveals and intrigue. And I think this is the perfect time to then thrust us into the world of dreams where the meat of the story begins to actually play out now that the initial setup is done. But that doesn't mean we're done adding more questions to the pile, because, well, let's talk about something that might be divisive about this arc in particular. This arc sure loves its mysteries. This quest hinges on the unknown, a proverbial smorgasbord of contrasting motives and mysteries. Before we even hop into the dream, a bunch of questions begin to already pop up. So let's finally do the first Star Rail retold. Fast forward edition, after learning the truth about the invites, we go to enter the dream world, only for Aventurine to harass us in our room, trying to get our help to retrieve something for the IPC. Then Acheron pops up, speaking sometimes with red text, only to say different things sometimes. And then once we enter into the dream world, we get to meet a girl named Firefly, who's suspected of being a stowaway here, which she is, who we learn has a disease in the real world that essentially is making her fade away. We also see Sampo, who warns us about Firefly, but it turns out it's not Sampo, but a woman named Sparkle, who is taking his likeness. We also talk to the in-dream mascot named Clocky, who gives us the power to manipulate emotions in the dream and says that we can only see him because we're childlike. But then Sparkle sends both of us and Firefly into the true dream, where a little boy can be heard calling for help, only for a death meme to pop up and try and kill the pair, but they're saved by a woman named Black Swan, only for the death meme to accomplish its goal on try to by killing Firefly, only for an android named Sam to attack the group and fight Acheron, but then Black Swan warps us away to then lie to us, and then Aventurine tells us that Duke Inferno was killed on his way to the planet, and then we see a dead Robin in a bathtub. There's honestly too much for me to slowly recap all of this. There's just so many mysteries. This beginning creates question after question after question for the player. Honestly, probably too many questions for me to list off. But let's try. Who sent the letters to the parties for Penacony? Why was there a distress signal in it? Who are the nameless that were left on Penacony, and are they still alive? Who really is Firefly? What is her dream? Why is death on Penacony? Is Acheron really an emanator? What is Aventurine's true goal? Why does Sparkle warn us? Why was Robin seemingly murdered? Who is the Watchmaker, if they're real? Why was Firefly seemingly murdered? What happened to Acheron to make her ask those questions in the dream? Why was Firefly with Sam? Why is Acheron's text sometimes read? Why was Duke Inferno seemingly murdered? Who is Mikhail? Is this really the duality of man? Why does life slumber? What is the IPC looking for on Penacony? And on and on and on and on and on. The issue with reviewing this arc then is that, well, if these mysteries end up being solved like ass and the reveals are terrible, then all of the setup will be hurt as a result, because the entire arc will be sullied. But I can only judge for what we have now. And so I have to judge the setup for these mysteries themselves and how they are set up, as well as, obviously, the characters, dialogue, theming, and so on. Like A Night With Me, things could start out well, but then they could fall apart when I tell them I have a YouTube channel about gacha games. Subscribe to me, please. Please subscribe. But just know that, like with any mystery narrative, this arc could easily lose a lot of shelf life and be thrown in the garbage if these reveals are bad. But I hesitate to say that it seems like they will be bad now, because the setup for a lot of these mysteries is actually really compelling, and I think a lot of that has to do with the characters, the planets in this solar system. The characters on Penacony are the most interesting cast we've yet to see in Star Rail. As I alluded to with the recap, we have a lot of the cast having different things going on and kind of clashing with each other goal-wise. So let's go through the main cast and explain why they're each great, while using them to illustrate the strengths and weaknesses of this arc as a whole. Spoilers though, Aventurine might be the best character that's ever been introduced in any game. Let's start with arguably the most important character in the arc, Firefly. Firefly seems like a normal, carefree individual, but we quickly learn that there's more to her than meets the eye. She quickly spots Sampo following them, and later reveals that she's incredibly perceptive of Sparkle's combat aptitude. She also reveals to us that her waking self is afflicted with a disease, one that makes her want to stay here in the dream world to really live her life. We're really shown the depth of this character very quickly, albeit not super subtly. Hoyoverse isn't exactly the best with subtlety, and mostly tells us up front how characters are. But what I love about Firefly is that she really hits on the most important details about this arc as a whole. She's just not trustworthy. She seemingly lies to us pretty quickly in the little time that we know her, and we can actually push back on this with the dialogue options. I remember in my video about Ruan May's quest that a lot of people wanted the ability to push back on her for using us and being awful. But I guess the Trailblazer likes mean mommies but has no tolerance for the girl next door archetype because damn, it seems like every time she asks you a question, you could just spit in her fucking face and call her a liar. I love that though, because again, she really is lying, and there really is something else about her that we just don't know yet. So then let's talk about her pivotal moment in this chapter, seemingly her death. This death meme shows up out of nowhere before, and while you were conveniently saved by Black Swan that time, the next time Firefly isn't so lucky, as it makes a beeline right for her heart. Now there seems to be some conversation about whether this moment was a good death or not, but I think that might be missing the point of what this scene was actually about. Someone who we just met and we're getting to know and understand gets immediately taken from us. The Trailblazer is someone who constantly has to deal with the thought of death. The Stellaron is essentially death incarnate, and yet it's something they have to deal with at all times. A ticking time bomb that could seemingly destroy them at any moment. But when they finally meet someone that they can relate to, someone who is afflicted with a rare illness threatening their life, that person is taken away in a cruel and painful way before they, or we, even get to know them. Now, I definitely don't think the writers wanted us to be particularly sad here. We really don't know Firefly that well. Instead, her death here was used to advance the Trailblazer and be an inciting incident for them in the plot. I mean, they basically have a panic attack afterwards because of how fast it all really was, but like, we all know Firefly probably isn't dead, right? Her focus in the beginning and the mysteries attached to her seem so important that it's unlikely that her death here was a real one. And so it's clear that not only was it used to forward the Trailblazer, but it was also used to create an inciting incident for the Trailblazer to become truly attached to the happenings on Penacony. Because before this, we're kind of just wandering around and checking things out. Yes, we as a player have the goal that I mentioned before, but we also need to realize that characters need an emotional goal as well. And solving another planet's mysteries doesn't really seem like an emotional goal for the Trailblazer. Having someone they were beginning to get attached to die as a result of whatever's going on here quickly gets the Trailblazer actually involved in the plot. It makes them a participant in the play now, rather than just an observer in a seat. Plots mess this up a lot, and Hoyoverse has done this mess up plenty of times, but simply having a character in a plot doesn't make them involved in the plot. What actually does is giving them an actual tie to the events in the plot, one that connects them on a deeper level than, say, solve this problem because I said so. Now, I don't want to be that guy that constantly rags on the Luofu, even though it was terrible garbage and was the worst arc that Hoyoverse has ever made, and even worse than Inazuma. But the Luofu made our characters into observers really quickly into that arc. In the Luofu video, I talk about the difference between active and reactive characters, but it's also important that a character have stakes in what's happening around them, even if they're active or reactive. After Kafka's portion of the Luofu, the party has no emotional connection to the events unfolding, so it really feels like there's no stakes to anything that's happening. They're just there. Here though, adding Firefly's death, even if it's a fake one, adds a hook for the Trailblazer to truly care about what's happening on the planet. And this is such a crucial component to make a story impactful. If our POV character has no connections to what's going on, it's going to hurt how we view what's going on as well. Next, let's talk about Sleepy Mommy. Black Swan is introduced to us by saving us. She's someone that is powerful, especially in dreams, since she's a part of an organization that understands them the best, and she knows her stuff. She saves us, so she's immediately trustworthy. Then she lies to us. Her, Firefly, and everyone else so far in this arc hit on something that this world is absolutely screaming from the dreamscape rooftops. Don't trust anyone. Nah, fuck it. I can't wait any longer. Before we talk about other planets, let's talk about the gravity that holds the solar system together. The themes. The themes to this world are the best that we've seen from a Star Rail world so far, and maybe from everything Hoyoverse has done so far. The world is one that worships the god of harmony, and on the surface, the world seems harmonious, right? A sort of hedonistic paradise where everyone has fun and gets along, with a not at all creepy and ominous clock as a mascot. Instead, though, the game flips that on its head and makes you literally distrust every single character. Anytime the Trailblazer blanketly trusts someone from this arc, they just end up lying to him, manipulating, or even turning against them. In a world of dreams, these characters are unlike anything that we've experienced in the waking world. It leads to this discombobulated, askewed nature to this world. Things are just off. But how does this relate to harmony? If anything, this is almost disharmonious, right? Well, if what you mean by harmony is tranquility, then yeah, everything here is flipped on its head, which I think could work for the world of dreams. Like dreams in real life, things are just a little off from what they really are. And while I think this is a way that you could read the themes here, I think the word harmony really means balance here. Penacony seems to encompass many opposites. A waking dream, a prison hotel, black and white, alive and dead, real and not real. This sort of paradoxical nature is what I spoke about in the last video with Penacony's visuals as well. A world of the future seemingly stuck in the past. The Trailblazer is already a balance of sorts too. Human and Stellaron, someone who is between life and death. And like I said, Firefly is like the Trailblazer, afflicted with something that makes her between reality and non-existence. Harmony, in this sense, also heavily connects to music as well. A harmony in music is the combination of differences in order to create something new. Take the actual music of Penacony itself, which has the synth component fused with the jazz historical influence, but also look to what this means about what we're actually experiencing on Penacony. I think the balance of Penacony is out of whack, and if our Trailblazer does get a new element here, it will be as a result of them rising to the challenges of all these mysteries and maybe bringing about balance once again. Not erasing the sinister, but acknowledging that things are both, establishing balance in a world that's truly a flip of reality. And this brings me to Aventurine, a character that seems like a real ass when you meet him, and still does, but might be the key to whatever this story has in store for us. Aventurine was sent by the IPC to collect something, and while he's there to collect, he's accompanied by Dr. Ratio. And in quite possibly the best conversation this game has ever had, they have a spat about Aventurine losing those items that he's supposed to hand off to the family, maybe as a trade for what the IPC truly wants. Dr. Ratio explains how grave of an error this truly was, and that Aventurine's life may actually be in danger by the IPC if he fails this mission. In an actually subtle, well-crafted conversation, it's implied that Aventurine might be a slave to the IPC, someone who might owe a debt or have been forced into servitude due to a saved dying planet, like with what we almost experienced on Eureka 6. So Aventurine is someone who seems like he's always scheming, someone who's pretty openly scummy, but someone who also has to be. His life might always be at risk, and as such, he might always be gambling with it. Someone who doesn't have many chips to play doesn't have much to lose. This conversation is fantastic, and it proves that Hoyoverse can do a well-crafted, subtle, and confrontational dialogue. All too often, we miss the confrontation in Star Rail and Genshin, and most conversations just boil down to exposition or like rizzing up the main character. Hoyoverse seemingly doesn't like having named characters disagree with one another or have any conflict, when conflict is one of the most important aspects to helping a character grow. So to show conflict here adds more to Aventurine's character in one conversation than most Hoyoverse characters get, well, in their entire lifetimes. This conversation subtly explains a character, characterizes Dr. Ratio even more too, and gives us a deeper look into why Aventurine is the way that he is. I said Firefly is the most important character in the arc, and her and Acheron likely are, due to their connections to the mystery But I think Aventurine may actually be the arc's protagonist in a sense, that he might represent everything that this arc is saying. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But while this is the best conversation the game has ever had, it doesn't mean this arc is without its dialogue woes though. Like the themes, the way things are written hold everything together as well. A great plot with great characters could be weighed down by messy writing, and mystery is notoriously difficult to write well. An interesting mystery that attaches to a broader, interesting theme is even more so. Often you can find that when writers are trying to be clever with keeping things hidden by having hints still be there, they often make their characters speak like poets instead of real people. And that absolutely happens here. And I would say that it happens fairly often. There are some eye-rolling conversations in this arc to the point that you can tell the writers were wanting the characters to allude to future mysteries without straight up giving things away to the player early on. And if they made the characters speak like real people, the mystery might have been foiled. And so we get some conversations like this. And while I do think that this is a problem, and I think there are absolutely ways to hide mysteries where characters still get to speak like people instead of like poets, I think this arc managed to sidestep this issue with me because I actually cared about what was going on. The strength of the mysteries are pretty high here because of the way that they're spaced apart and told. And the fact that there are some characters here that already have some depth and intrigue really carries a lot of what's happening from a dialogue perspective. So while some conversations can still feel the typical Hoyo-verse wonkiness, when they get them right, they really get them right here, and it makes those bad dialogue moments more passable than they otherwise would be. At least to me. Speaking of dialogue, let's talk about Sparkle. She's a big character for the arc. She's someone who we have very little of right now, but I certainly wouldn't call her a villain just yet, like others have. She's someone who tries to watch out for the Trailblazer, and certainly has plans for them because of it. Yes, she has that scene with Sunday at the end, but if anything, that scene with Sunday might actually make him look more like the true villain here, since this arc loves to subvert the obvious. I mean, his design also practically sings villain in the language of this arc. An angel design in a world where things aren't as they seem, with eyes on every inch of him that mysteriously look similar to the Death Meme's design. If anything, I'd say watch out for him as the true villain. And that might be why we've gotten nothing with the family so far. For seemingly the most important faction on this planet, we've gotten very little with them. But until we get more, that might just be by design, and that design might be to have more mystery attached to Sunday, who might be the true villain. If there really is one here, by the way, there might just not be a villain. What does seem to be a mess up with the cast here, though, is, once again, the Astral Express crew. So far, the Express is once again relegated to busy work, while the actual story just happens around them, with the exception, obviously, of the Trailblazer. Like I said before, being there is not the same as being connected to a plot, and while the Nameless aren't exactly pointless here, they have no stakes in what's happening and almost nothing going on of substance. Again, this might change with reveals, so I'm holding out complete judgment, but I do think it's important to note here. In this setup portion of this arc, they've been relegated to busy work and exposition, and almost nothing else, which is once again a true bummer for this game. I might make a video about this in the future, but I really don't see a reason why there's even an ensemble that travels between worlds in this game. They almost never get used. The Dan Hung case is an especially egregious one, since a planet that should have been dedicated to him just wasn't. But we'll see if anything similar to that happens here. At least the Trailblazer is important here, which is refreshing. But having our returning cast be the worst utilized characters here is actually saying something. So far, we're not seeing the Ching Chuis of the arc, and characters that do have designs, like Bloodhound Daddy, don't overstay their welcome. Instead, this arc is really focused on what's important and who's important, and I think that that's impressive after an arc as meandery and pointless as Luofu. So this solar system is complete. A plot that shines brightly with a mystery that has intrigue and an emotional hook for our protagonist. Characters that are written unlike anything that we've yet to see in Star Rail, in a good way, and have conversations that subtly inject us with more depth than we usually see from a cast, and themes that are exceptionally well done, that it alone could make this arc a banger. All of this is why I'm going to say that this chapter was a trailblazer. God, I hope they don't somehow fumble this. But regardless, at least we have this. And honestly, that makes me happy with the state of this game's story. But what do you think? Let me know if you agree with me in the comments. Regardless though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.